President for nearly 15 years and 3 terms in office, Algeria's 77-year-old leader Abdelaziz Bouteflika is running for a 4th term. His opponents say he's too old and sick to lead the country. So what can Algerians expect from this election, and what impact will it have on the region? This is Inside Story. Hello, a warm welcome to the programme. I'm Hazem Sika. Well, voters in Algeria have been casting their ballots for a new president. 77-year-old Abdelaziz Bouteflika is the current leader, and he's running for his 4th term in office. And many observers say he is likely to win Thursday's election, despite his failing health. Bouteflika hasn't been seen much in public after he suffered a stroke last year. Some opposition groups are calling for a boycott, saying the president's failing health makes him unfit for office. But his supporters say he's fine and can do the job. There have been several protests around the country calling on Bouteflika not to run for a 4th term in office. So who's running for the presidency? Well, there are 6 candidates, all of whom have participated in previous elections, but the race is thought to be between just 2. As we've just mentioned, Abdelaziz Bouteflika is the front runner. The 77-year-old has been in power since 1999, serving 3 terms and suffering 1 stroke. He's credited with helping end Algeria's civil war in the 1990s that killed 200,000 people. But the last years of his rule have been dogged by corruption scandals. His main challenger is Ali Benflis. A little younger than Bouteflika at 69, Benflis has decided to stand in the election after a 10-year absence from politics. A former prime minister, he ran Bouteflika's presidential campaign in 1999. But in 2004, he ran against him and only won 6.4% of the vote. Well, for more on the Algerian presidential election, I'm joined now by our 3 guests. Here in Doha, we have Amel Boubekeur, a specialist in North African politics. She's also a non-resident fellow at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. And joining us from London, we have Mohamed Larbi Zitout, a former Algerian diplomat. Mr. Zitout is also the co-founder of the Rashad opposition movement. And joining us on Skype from the Algerian capital is Ismail Debesh, a member of the National Liberation Front. Thank you all for being with us. Amel, if I could start with you, it is pretty much a foregone conclusion that Mr. Bouteflika will win a 4th term. What does that really mean for Algeria going forward?
Where the most interesting things are coming. I mean, for example, this is after the elections that we are going to see if Bouteflika can really rule on his own. I don't think so. I don't think he will be able to finish his 4th mandate if he is appointed again. So that will also ask the question of his successor. Also, I mean, how the streets who are, not all the streets, but many people who are currently demonstrating on the streets, how are they going to react? Are they going to accept the vote or not? So really, it's not about, we should not very much focus on the re-election of Bouteflika or his challenger Ali Benflis, but much more on what kind of new governance system they may launch after the elections. And unfortunately, it's not really about a candidate, it's really about a system. Benflis or Bouteflika, nothing is going to change. But if the streets and the opposition and boycotting party can put enough pressure on the next president, then we may see some change in Algerian governance.
Let's put some of that then to Ismail Debesh in Algeria. There's a lot of questions coming after this election. You just heard Amel talk about them there, and not the least of which as well is Mr. Bouteflika's failing health. He's 77 years old, as we said. He suffered a mini stroke last year, which confined him to hospital in France for 3 months. He was unable to even go on the campaign trail at all himself. Is this a leader who should be even running for another term?
First of all, I'm very happy to be in your program, Inside Story, for the 2nd time. Well, you said he has been in public. Yes, he has been. He has been public today. He went to vote today. Although on the wheelchair, the same as Eisenhower went when he went for the elections of the United States. So I don't think a wheelchair person can lead a country, and Bouteflika has been leading the country for the last 3-4 years, he has been ill in a very good manner, an organic manner. I think what has been more promoting that his illness around the country is more political propaganda rather than a realistic approach. I think not me. I mean, a lot of powers, great powers, representative of great powers has the same witnesses, like the Prime Minister of France when he met him. He said, I'm very surprised the way he's aware and the way of dealing with the files, political files and strategic files. The same said by the U.S. General Foreign Secretary, and the same as with the Spanish and other leaders of including the Amir, the Qatar Amir. So, I don't think the health is a problem now. The problem is how to deal with the propaganda. That's maybe what is a problem.
Why is it propaganda?
Well, the truth is around the country. The evidence is that he has contained the threats and regional threats that affected negatively Arab countries like Libya, Egypt, and Syria. And he was differently from such a position and was well enough to contain such approaches. That's at the international level. At the internal level, I think the evidence is the people. I was today living the votes in the elections directly with people, almost 16 or 17 points, all of the people.
Mohammed Larbi Zitout, what's your take on all of this? Is a fourth term a step too far for Mr. Bouteflika?
In fact, he's not, you mentioned that he's too old and maybe too sick, but also too corrupt. This is extremely corrupt regime. And Bouteflika, this is the fourth term, yes, as a president, but he was a minister in 1963. That means 50 years or 51 year before, where 85% of Algerians were not born at that time. Can you imagine from where they are coming? I mean, more than half a century. This is one of the nature of the regime that is extremely old now. Most of its members are sick and well and fit for purpose and for job, but they are still keeping a position, their position in a very despotic and tyrannic way. And when I heard your guest from Algiers saying that we have foreign guests who said clearly that he was aware and he was talking good, and that's a shame, that's a scandal, where we have to have others to come and say if the president of a country is still aware and still recognize others or not. He should have been went to retirement, and by law and by the Constitution, the Article 88 of the Constitution stipulate clearly that when the president is not fit for the purpose, he has to be removed from the office. Unfortunately, they don't see the reality in front of them. They want to go like the other Arab rulers. I mean, Mubarak, Gaddafi, Ben Ali, all the other before them, they were clearly denial of the reality and denial of what is the situation. And at the end of the day, we know their fate. He mentioned also that Algeria, it's stable and we don't want like to be Libya. In fact, what they are doing is just pushing the situation to be extremely disastrous and to be in like Libya or even like Syria.
Let's talk a little bit more about where the real power is in Algeria then. A select group of unelected civilian and military figures known to Algerians as le pouvoir, or the power, have a lot of sway. It is made up of members of the former ruling party, the National Liberation Front, or the FLN. Army generals also hold important positions. The banned Islamic Salvation Front was barred from power after it won elections back in 1991. So, Amel, if I could turn back to you on this then. I mean, you talked a little bit earlier about what may happen after this election and who is likely to succeed Bouteflika, but there also is the factor of the Islamist groups which we mentioned there and where they figure into all of this.
I think this is a crucial issue, but it belongs not only to the power, as you said, but also to the Algerian people. It has to be a public debate on the past 20 years, on the civil war that occurred in the 90s, and about what kind of reconciliation processes do the Algerians want. And unfortunately, the regime has been blocking this public debate. I mean, 5 years ago, or even recently, 2-3 years ago, it was still forbidden, for example, to mention the name of Ali bin Hajj, the former head of the Islamic Salvation Front, on public radio or TVs. So things are changing. Now, the scenario may be that Benflis may offer some kind of conciliation process with the so-called radical parties, namely the ones that are not allowed to play a political role, namely the Islamic Salvation Front, and the formerly corrupted party like the Hamas and Islah and Nahda and so on. So they may find themselves in a kind of new alliances with other leftist parties, for example, but the issue is not about a kind of consensus about, yeah, we want a transition, but about, again, the possibility to have a democratically and transparent debate about what kind of project of society that should be a pluralist project of society they are going to shape.
But just to pick up on some of that, I mean, one of the criticisms that's made of the opposition is that they are weak and they're divided. I mean, is there any group or any sort of a viable unity among these opposition groups that can offer a real alternative in Algeria?
No, that's a reality. I mean, these parties, being Islamist or leftist or whatever, their programs are totally outdated. They have been disconnected from civil society, of course, because there has been a repression from the power. I mean, public demonstrations and political meetings were forbidden, but also because they have been so obsessed by the pouvoir. They have been so obsessed by talking to the generals and talking to the president, and they have just forgot to talk about the people. So the result is that there's a huge rejection of any kind of change or any kind of political mobilization throughout the party. That doesn't mean that Algerians have an anti-political attitude. On the contrary, they are highly politicized. But they cannot see any kind of change driven by political parties now.
All right, let's turn back then to Ismail Boubekeur. We talked there about what Algerians call the pouvoir, where they see as the real power in Algeria. And when you talk to a lot of Algerians, especially younger ones, they say that they feel completely disconnected from their country's entire political leadership. What is your party doing to address that perception?
First of all, I don't think I agree with you that they are totally disconnected.
Well, that's what they're saying. That's what they say.
No,
and in fact, if you look at some of the economic figures, unemployment is among the highest. There are millions of young Algerians who come out of school without jobs, and they feel completely disenfranchised in Algeria. As a member of the ruling party, this surely is something that you're going to have to address at some point.
But if you look at the people who participated today and who voted Bouteflika, largely, mostly are young people. So this is a judgment, an exaggerated judgment. The other thing, Mr. Zitoun said corruption. I agree with him. There is corruption, and I don't think there is. It's a hidden thing. It is very well known, and it's being dealt with, and it has been reduced with the recognition of the international centers specialized in corruption. And recently, a report saying that the corruption in Algeria has gone from 100% to 20%. That means it's getting down because of the control and the firmly controlled way of giving contracts and economic contracts to others, and control of making the state institutions work more hard. The other thing, what Sister Amel said, what society the Algerian people want. I think the Algerian society is already made. The Algerian society is an Islamic society, and the constitution is very well written that the second article, Islam is the religion of the state. So the people, the Algerian state has been able to deal with the Islamic religion in all fields, and that's why maybe we did not face the same as it happened in Tunisia recently and Libya, like what was religiously forbidden in Libya and Tunisia was allowed and has been allowed, and that's why, especially from the national reconciliation. So I think we are exaggerating. Algeria is a republic, is a democratic state with defects.
Right. I know, Amel, you want to respond to some of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no truth, there's no transitional justice that has been able to offer Algerian people the truth. We still don't know who are the disappeared, the people who have been disappeared during the 90s. Also, Mr. Debash is mentioning corruption. Today in Algeria, if you denounce corruption in your public company, private company, even within and especially within the military, you're just put in jail. So how are they going to address that? If they still want to struggle corruption, they should start to protect people who are trying to denounce corruption and who are currently put in jail in Algeria.
All right, I know Ismail Debash wants to respond to that. I'll let you respond to that briefly, and then we'll get the view of Mohammed Larbi Zitout. Go ahead.
There are a lot of cadres in Algeria who have been corrupted are in prison, and others are waiting to be judged soon after the files of investigation is ready there. So corruption is not a hidden thing. Bureaucracy is not a hidden thing. It's something is being dealt, and it will be seriously more dealt for the next mandate.
Mohammed Larbi Zitout, I mean, you are a member of the Rashad opposition group. We talked earlier about Mr. Ben Fleece, and there is also this movement known as Barakat, which is an Algerian word for enough. I mean, what are all of these opposition groups offer as a viable alternative, do you think? If they were given a chance, what would they bring to Algerian society and to Algerian government?
They will bring order and law and democracy as it should have happened since 1962, but unfortunately, since that date, the independence of Algeria, a handful of colonels seized the power, and since that, Algeria is the power, le pouvoir is essentially military power. Now it's the hierarchy, the senior generals who are behind the scene are les décideurs, as they mention or the name there in Algeria. What Mr. Debash said is really a nonsense. Most of the corrupt people, corruption is at an industrial scale, in fact, in Algeria, and most of the corrupt people are either in power or outside. And Shakib Khalil being an example, the former Minister of Energy. What the other could bring is, first, today in Algeria, there is no ideology. There is no such Islamist or nationalist or laïc or secular or Democrat or liberal. There are those who are with the tyranny regime, with very tyrannic regime, very despotic regime, very backwards regime, and those who are fighting that regime and would like to establish a real democracy, real civil state, real state of law, and not where a few or handful of generals decided in the place of more than 40 million Algerians. Young Algerians are leaving Algeria most of the time in very, very bad conditions. Some of them even lost their lives while being in boat.
All right, but I want to put this to you, Mohammed Larbi Zitout. I mean, many people who support. There are many people who do support Bouteflika, and they have been out voting this Thursday, and they praise him for containing the social unrest that spread to Algeria in 2011, for containing that while there were mass protests around all around the Arab world. They say that what he has brought is stability. And what he also did over the last few years is lift a 19-year state of emergency and raised wages. So they say that this is what Algeria needs, and has been spared a lot of the social unrest that you have seen in a number of other Arab countries in the Middle East over the last couple of years.
First, the state of emergency has been replaced by even worse law, which is, they call it the terrorist law or the terrorist regulation or an anti-terrorist law. And secondly, this stability is very false stability. It's a so-called stability, because the stability, and when they say that if Bouteflika is not again appointed as president, we will lose our stability. That means this stability is just linked to one person. But we are human and we are going to die, and he's going to die. After that, what will happen? A stability which is linked to one person, it's a bad and a sad and a false stability. And that's not even the case, in fact, because they recognize officially that last year, for example, there were more than 10,000, and this is an official figure. It's more than 10,000 unrest where police has intervened, and most of the time has violently intervened. There is the stability is where a society, whole society, will be involved in running the country in a way or another, and will be really happy about those who rule the country, rule the state, and not by one person or handful of generals.
Amel Boubekeur, is this a false stability, a stability under the barrel of a gun, if you will?
Well, first on the willingness of the people, I think we should not be fooled. People certainly do not want violent change. There's a consensus. People have paid a high price when it comes to violence, and they do not want a violent change.
Indeed, no one wants to return to the
because
civil war.
They are going the ones
ago.
to whom it's going to be very costly. So they know that their leaders are not going to pay for violence, but they are going to pay for it. That's one thing. But we should not understand this consensus on the non-violent change for consensus on statu quo. People do not want statu quo. People are actually fed up with the regime, and they are taking the streets daily in a non-political way or in a non-apparent political way, but they are taking the streets daily to ask for water and electricity facilities, and sometimes they do it violently. And on this idea that the rent bears social peace, the rent does not bear social peace, actually. The more you give, the more people are asking for, and also the more, since this rent hire redistribution is not done through transparent processes and rationalized economics, where then it is creating inflation, it is creating social inequalities, and it is sparkling violent riots every day in Algeria now. So that's not stability at all.
Ismail Debesh, isn't it the case that the military in Algeria is really the only power in the country? It is the power behind the current president, and that those who support him are those who have benefited from his rule. And we talked about the corruption earlier.
If it wasn't the achievement in Bouteflika today, I wouldn't arrive in time to talk to you. I was 500 kilometers away from Algiers. I arrived in time, although I was so busy. The achievement of motorways, the achievement of dams, the achievement of railways, the achievement of social economy, the achievement of services, all of it are really facts. Nobody can question it. But there are some defects, but the defects are less than the achievement. So really, to exaggerate that nothing happened and everything unstable, it's more propaganda rather than reality.
Sorry, the question I'm asking you is about the military leadership. And the idea that is the real power in Algeria, and that Bouteflika would not be president if he didn't have the army support.
The people who say military, they were in power as well. I mean, they accuse Algeria running by the military and behind the people, the same people who worked hard to put Bouteflika to be president, like the party of Hamas. 2004 and 2009, when they said Bouteflika is the only solution and his program is the only solution, and they said the army is a force behind a stable country and the achievement the Algeria did at its borders. So I think it's more politically justified rather than really a reality. Yes, we have a strong army for defending the borders. That's Tigon Turin was the example. We have an army which won the terrorism when the West was accusing Algeria, who kills one until 2001. So I think it's all a relative thing to say. I don't agree with Ms. Amel, and nor I don't agree with Mr. Zaytout, what they say about the army. But everyone has his view.
Indeed, everyone does have his view. And on that note, we are going to have to leave it. I want to thank all three of you for taking part. Mohammed Larbi Zaytout in London, Ismail Debesh in Algeria, and Amel Boubekeur joining me here in the studio in Doha. Thanks very much, all of you. And thank you for joining us on another edition of Inside Story. Remember, you can add your voice to this discussion online at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. We're on Twitter as well. Our address there is at AJ Inside Story. And for everyone here on the team, I'm Hazem Sika. Bye for now.